welcome to episode 18 of Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for joining me and tuning in this week. Last week, I did not do an intro just because I actually lost my voice. I was at a friend's wedding the weekend prior and could not really speak for the life of me, let alone do a podcast recording intro and outro. So I hope you enjoyed last week's episode as well. That was all about like sexual biohacking. I had a sex therapist on, Susan Breton, who was amazing. And we just had the best discussion. So I'm sure you've tuned into that one. If not, give it a listen after this one. It is really jam-packed with a variety of different topics like nutrition for libido and having a healthy sex life. And also like some interesting things we talked about, like the trends that she sees in younger generations in terms of like their own sexuality and like sexual practices. And also like how to talk to youth and children about having a healthy sex life and what that looks like. And just with, you know, everything that's online these days and how that affects children and youth growing up into adults. So it was a very interesting episode, if I do say so myself. But this week, we're definitely switching gears. We have Antonio Matos on, and he is an expert in the EMF world. So he has a company called Faradays that creates EMF blocking boxers for men. And he's actually also moving into the female space as well soon. And basically, we just talk about what EMF is and 5G and how you can block EMFs and kind of take like healthy measures to mitigate the effects, especially for men. There tends to be quite a lot of research on EMFs on testicles and how it affects sperm quality and quantity and mobility, as well as testosterone. So especially for men who work with laptops on their laps, you know, watching TV, or who put their phones in their pockets, those tend to be the two biggest ones, I think. So there's quite a lot of research coming out about that, which is interesting. And we definitely touch base on that. So I hope you enjoy this episode. There is a lot of good information. And yeah, let me know what you think and subscribe. Thanks. Antonio Matos from Faradays, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Fine, just peachy. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on. So I would love you to walk us through your company, Faradays, and how you kind of got to the point of creating it and where you think and want the company to go in the future.
Okay. So Faradays is the name of our domain. And we are a social enterprise, I like to say. When I first started thinking about starting a business, I wanted to do something that was extremely impactful on kind of the current, I don't want to say structures, but the way that that business was carried out. I lived in China for 7 years before we're starting Faradays, and it kind of gave me this sense of something's not quite right with how the world is working. And so when I left China, when I was there as an IP sort of enforcer, and I saw that a lot of inefficiencies in business, not just in the factories in China, but also in where and how money is sort of spent in businesses towards, you know, protecting intellectual property as opposed to innovating, you know, new businesses and new business models. And when I came back from China, I went over to grad school, and that's where I discovered that I had electromagnetic hypersensitivity, which is, I think, an official disease now, where people are starting to get symptoms from their exposures, their overexposures to the increasing amounts of EMFs in the environment. So I realized actually in class, underground, that I would know like a split second before my phone would ring. And I started looking into what could be causing that, and thought it was psychic, or maybe something was wrong with my phone. I never knew like how phones worked before that. I just kind of assumed that it was just magic, and that the way they worked wasn't sort of a threat or a risk to our health. But as it turns out, one of the godfathers, I guess, of EMF he's since passed away, but a scientist, highly renowned, written tons of books. One of the most respected EMF experts, was a scientist at Columbia University where I was studying. and I had a chance to meet with him, and he kind of took me through. And I was studying kind of social entrepreneurship and nothing related to sort of medical health in the way that it is sort of prescribed today to the students, or physics. But he took me through kind of how cells are impacted by intracellular communications, and how our bodies are affected from EMFs, and all sorts of EMFs and different frequencies. And so I kind of spent the next year or two researching like the health impacts and what studies are published on this stuff. There have recently since been a number of studies which have come out, pre these most recent studies in the 90s and the last decade or so, from like the early 70s and even the 60s, showing negative effects of EMF, kind of stuff from that the military had done and sort of covered up. And now it's kind of in the fore. And so the most vulnerable, and maybe this was somewhat of a biased decision on my part too, because I think maybe babies or the youngest generation are probably the most vulnerable, but the most vulnerable body part on humans are the testicles. And so instead of, every electronic device emits EMFs, even like EMF testing meters. This is emitting EMF as well, as do the wires in your house and power lines. But instead of kind of creating solutions for every single device, and these devices actually within themselves have EMF protection, because the wires, cause interference between the insides and organs of electronics. But with regards to the testicles, they're the most exposed, given to how we use technology these days. And that kind of goes into a different path towards kind of regulation, and how these electronics have been regulated, and sort of the laws that have been built since the 90s in order to enable electronic and telecom industry people to do their thing. But back to testicles, like the cells of the testicles are also like the most sensitive. And so, I was kind of looking at the other men's health trends, and I'm getting older myself, and probably noticing some drops to testosterone levels, across society. And certainly fertility is dropping, and erectile dysfunction is a risk. And all of these men's health sort of even societal factors are also in play. It is an underwear product, and what it does is it shields all EMFs from, including 5G, from impacting your testicles. And most interestingly, there are a couple studies which show that if you reduce exposure to your balls, your sac, then that it gives them a chance to recover and to heal and to reverse previous damage.
Wow. That's so interesting. Like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody necessarily say that they can feel their phone ringing before it rings, and like just having such like hypersensitivity like that is something else. Like, how common is that among people now? Like, I'm sure it's increasing, but EMF sensitivity seems like such a new topic. So have you seen like research on it increasing every year, or like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Just recently, it's become like a recognized thing, and started, I think, in Scandinavia, actually, where they're are much more progressive, especially when it comes to healthcare and how the government's set up. But everyone's body senses or has an effect to EMF. But does your consciousness actually kind of recognize the jolt? And I think it had to do with certain mind states, to be honest, or moods, because I can't really feel my phone anymore. And I think that has something to do with I'm not as sort of wary as what business or path I'm going to take on to life. And I was sort of in a depressed state kind of in a zombie state at school. And I think, and it was in New York City, that could have been a factor. Although I've been around, lots of exposure before and not had the experience of, feeling my phone before it's going to ring. But I've been aware now of these issues. So I take sort of action to reduce my exposures and not hold my phone against my head, or not put it in my pocket, or things like that. But regardless if people can feel EMF or not, I mean, it's definitely causing changes, harmful changes in our body. And there are cases of like, healthy EMF as well, where maybe like for healing or like recovery for like athletes, they'll like zap a body part for 30 seconds with high intensity EMF, and it may like stimulate blood flow and whatnot. But the way we're exposed to EMF like on a daily basis from our environments is just causing lots of really longer timescale genetic mutation, kind of making us sterile.
So in terms of so you create boxers that have a specific fabric in them that blocks EMF from hitting your junk, right? That's what the product is in itself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what on an actual smaller level, what is the fabric actually made out of? Because I'm starting to see these different materials come out now, not just boxers, but t-shirts and different things that have different metals woven into them that apparently block off EMFs. So is that the case for yours, or how does the technology really work?
Yeah. So EMF stands for electromagnetic field, electromagnetic frequency, which are energy waves that are basically light and travel at the speed of light, and they're made up of electricity and magnetics. So what conductive fabrics do, and conductive means that they reflect or allow electricity to flow on conductive surfaces. But with regards to EMFs in the microwave range, which our fabric blocks and reflects and does not allow that stuff to get inside, given that the technicalities of how an EMF wave is blocked is probably best explained by a physicist, but on a basic level, what happens is there's a depolarization of the electrons on the surface of the fabric, and that causes the EMF wave to reflect. And so the positive electrons of the fabric will go to the surface, and the negative electrons actually will go to the other side of and the fabric is duplex. There's two sides to the fabric, and the outer surface is the kind of the reflective side, and the inner surface is more polymeric and more absorbent of sweat, which further exacerbates exposure, because when you have sweaty skin, it makes the skin conductive and easier for the electricity to flow. And so the pouch reduces exposure and protects the balls.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. So if you start, if somebody, a male, I guess, were to start using these, say every day, and just bought a bunch of pairs and was wearing them every day, how long would it take to see a change? And how long would it take for them to reap the benefits?
Immediately. I believe in the placebo effect, and they're also extremely comfortable. And so you're able to move around, and they don't kind of roll up like other underwear. And they're also anti-odor, so you can kind of wear them at the gym and prevent people smelling you if you go to the night party after. But in terms of the testosterone effects and the cancer, I mean, so we've done a few one-off studies, and there's a number of biomarkers that have had really positive increases. And these studies haven't been super designed and controlled, but they are done by biohackers and myself, and which show after a couple of weeks, after a few weeks, sperm's made every 90 days. Testosterone can have, if you eat a Brazil nut before bed, your testosterone levels will increase in the morning. But over time, what the EMF does to the structures is it causes the cells in the testicles to have it impacts the membranes. So it causes the calcium, which is used for the cells to communicate with each other, to be either overflowed or to be not enough. So it'll cause an imbalance. And over time, that causes tissue damage and causes, impacts the ability for function, really produce testosterone and whatnot. Yeah, without that cumulative sort of exposure, then they're able to recover and function how they're supposed to.
So the boost in testosterone would happen within 24 hours, or more accumulative, you were saying, over time?
If your posture is more straight up, right? Upright, then the testosterone increases immediately, doesn't it? Or even with breath work. Maybe we should add some sort of weight to the back part of the waistband to kind of pull the back. And so your shoulders are kind of pulled back, and I think that has an impact on testosterone.
Yeah, because I know that fertility is such a big issue now. I have a close friend of mine who is struggling to get pregnant with her partner, and they're in their early 30s, and they're just starting to dive into EMFs, and just because they're almost at a loss of what else to do, they've hacked their diet and they've hacked all of these other parts, but they haven't really got into the EMF world yet. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what that looks like for them. And I just wonder, with the fertility issues that everybody's having, like how much of it is EMF related, and how worse is it going to get as like more and more stuff goes online and like 5G becomes a thing, and like, is it decreasing, or is it like possible for us to kind of like hold off and like mitigate it for a while? You know what I mean?
No one really knows, but the salesman in me wants to say like, it's the clear factor that's causing all of these issues in society, even though it's not, but it's definitely a factor. And you can increase sperm quality and counts if that's the issue. There's a number of other issues that could be involved, but I think it's the biggest factor that's not being talked about. I think it's more of a societal thing than the health sort of issues with technologies. Like, encompasses more than just EMF, because there's like the psychological impact, and it's so holistic. And to blame everything on like the EMF is easy because it's covered. It's been like swept under the rug, and like the political ramifications and all of this. I mean, for example, the reinsurance companies who insure the insurance companies who insure like Samsung for the product liability for health claims do not insure these companies. So on their annual reports, for all the stock investors out there who are, making lots of money, but they haven't sold their tech stocks yet, there is risk on their annual reports that says, we have risk from health claims from consumers because the reinsurance companies won't cover these. And actually, just past Friday, some law firms, and this is the first time this has happened, came right after the Chicago Tribune had published a story because they did their own test on each of like the most popular cell phones, and found that the cell phones are emitting like many times more than the legal limit, even though most of the studies that have been done by scientists show that even levels of EMF that are below the legal limits also cause damage. So these law firms are suing the technology companies, and they're probably going to get very rich because these technology companies are preparing for war against consumer health claims. And it's just starting now. And one of the ideas that I have for our nonprofit is to kind of collect information on patients, I guess, who are experiencing any symptom that can be linked to EMF, for the purpose of battling the telecom companies and also making a buck, but channeling that money further into 5G research and building solutions, because it's coming and it will come, and sort of preventing 6G and 7G from happening.
Yeah. So what I've heard in terms of EMF, because like EMF is such a debated topic right now. There's so many people who think it's so woo-woo and not legit and has no science backing, and like just don't believe it and don't believe electronics really have an impact. Like I know so many people who think that. But what I've heard is that EMF right now is kind of like how cigarettes were 40, 50 years ago. So they're popular, everyone's starting to do it, and no one really understands the health implications of it long term, because it literally just hasn't been around long enough. There hasn't been enough studies. So that's what people say EMF is right now. Is like, you might think that it might not have an impact, but we don't have 20, 30, 40-year studies that really show that impact. So, and I'm kind of on the fence with that, because I understand that we haven't had the long enough like studies, like the internet and electricity and all these things are just like, have just blown up really in the last 20, 30 years, right? So the fact that the science isn't necessarily there yet long term, I still think it is better to be preventative about it than to be sorry about it in 30 years. So I just wonder if like 30 years from now, people are going to look back and be like, wow, we were so dumb. We had so much EMF in our homes, in our kids' bedrooms, everywhere. Why didn't we know better? And I feel like it's just better to be safe than sorry, I guess. And like, that's the approach that I take. It's kind of like in between, but
that's the direction like that healthcare is moving in, more of a sort of preventative approach. It's totally based on making money, right? And the way in a capitalistic society, which is necessary for competition, I think. But yeah, preventative approach is the way to go. Yeah, and sort of a future-oriented way of thinking about this. Since we're making babies with genetic mutation, babies are being born with like autism, and so exposure right out of the womb in hospitals. Hospitals have so much machines in an operating room or wherever, everywhere in the hospital, and doctors kind of deny this because that's not how they were trained or sort of been made to believe. So I think there's the whole like another 10 years of unlearning that has to happen based on like the mainstream media coming to grips with what's been going on. Yeah, I totally agree with you though that the preventative health strategy is best, and optimizing like biohacking, right? Like these things you will optimize health via reducing exposure. Does it affect like your productivity though? Like how do you keep up with people who are totally like addicted, or whatever term you want to use, they use their technology? Like what level of technology use is healthy in a modern society? And we can make phones that are a little bit safer actually, but then it means that the cell phone companies have to like kind of admit all the previous damage. And so it's like play it by ear kind of thing.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, the approach I take right now with EMFs is I just try and reduce it. So I have a phone case that reduces it, which when you flip it over and you put the phone to your head, it like changes the direction of the EMFs and takes it away from your head, which is really great. And then I also have a EMF blocking blanket so that if you're sitting with your laptop on your computer or your laptop on your lap, the EMF blanket kind of like blocks it off. And then there's like practices that people do where like they don't keep their phone in their bedroom, or it's always on airplane mode and that sort of thing, which I think is really great. But I think your company creating boxers is really just like taking it to the next level. So in terms of, I guess, like gear that protects the body from EMF, is there a reason why you haven't developed like female clothing? Like I would love to see underwear that does the same thing as boxers, and I haven't seen it yet. And I know like it might not be as big of a deal for females, but like I still think that, if it was out there, I would buy it basically.
Yeah, right. It feels like you need it.
Yeah.
But there's like a ton of muscle and at least a little bit of fat and much thicker skin than a scrotum, protecting the ovaries. And like for the anatomy of a woman's private parts, I don't think they're as risky as man's parts, at least for fertility, maybe for other things.
What about for like breast tissue? Like, could you guys create maybe like a bra or like a bralette that did that? Because it seems like it's pretty exposed.
Yeah, it's totally exposed. I don't know where you keep your phone, like when you work out, but do you like stuff it in
my bra? Yeah, I've done that. Sometimes it's hard, or then you have like the wireless headphones that are Bluetooth that are emitting EMFs on your head. So like, I don't know what the solution is.
2.45 gigahertz. Yeah. That stuff's, brain cancer. Just not use it. I don't believe in like brain waves, like being able to travel like around the world and being inserted into someone else's brain. So I don't know if like a hat would be useful, but if you don't like use your phone against your head, I think you're cool. And you have air tubes, right?
Yeah.
We should start selling air tubes.
Yeah.
I think we're going to do air tubes, and we're also, the breast tissue is a huge risk. And there's science showing that, breast cancer rates are people who are getting breast cancer these days, like young girls, may not be genetically predisposed on paper, but somehow they've been using or stuffing the phone in their bra and getting cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys should create sports bras coming 2020.
Yes, that's actually factual. And we are doing that. But we're still kind of just starting the development phase of like how it would be, like strapless or a pocket for the phone, or like...
Yeah, don't do strapless if it's a sports bra. If it's not a sports bra, it's different.
Do you wear a sports bra like in normal daily activities?
Sometimes, like they can be pretty comfortable, right? Because a lot of bras, when you buy them, like have wires or weird padding or like are just really tight. And it actually is not really good for your lymph either. It kind of like blocks your lymph, which is another health thing. That's why a lot of people now wear like, I don't know how much you know about this, but a lot of people now wear like bralettes, which are like, it's just a piece of fabric. It can be lace, it can be whatever. And that's a lot easier on the body. It's gentler. It doesn't hurt. And it's not as tight. So yeah, I mean, like you could wear a sports bra during the day. It depends, right? It depends on like your body type too, is a big factor. So what I was going to ask is, for people who don't know what air tubes are, could you explain them and explain what the benefit would be?
I've done a lot of research on this. What I have concluded is that, so there are sound waves that travel, right? And in normal earphones, like Apple sends you, they travel in a wire. And anything that's traveling in a wire has an electric field around it. And, so right now, if you're all of the, from normal earphones, those EMFs, it's actually safer than holding the phone up to your head or wherever you hold it. But there are some EMFs. How much? I haven't tested it. But what would be lower is air tubes. So the air actually travels in like plastic tubes. Mm-hmm. And so there's no electricity between. So there may be electricity actually near the ear. I'll have to look into that. And there is electricity, where your phone is.
Right. Because isn't it that the sound on the headphones is lower down and then it gets pushed to the ear rather than the sound coming straight to your ear? Is that what it is? Because that's what I read, but that could be like totally wrong.
Yeah. The sound travels through, I'm not sure if there's like a vacuum or any sort of compressor or what happens there, but yeah, it travels through the air tube. I do know that it reduces exposure though. At least, from what the companies say, to your head and to the rest of your body where the wires are close. So if we were to do an air tube like we did for the underwear, we would make it better on like every level. Because like the underwear is like made out of bamboo and it's like ridiculously comfortable. Mm-hmm. And it's, kind of priced much lower than all of the other luxury brands, which are made out of synthetics and not as comfortable. So we would do something like that. We kind of make it mainstream and available to as much people as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'd love for us to just dive into 5G and explain to people what the difference between 4G and 5G is, and if there's any reason to be alarmed, and like what should we really be worried about?
We should be worried about, so I'm worried about like robots taking over and like there being like riots in the streets and looting. But on like for my body, I'm protected with underwear, and there's no 5G coming up in my neighborhood, but there are neighborhoods around the country, in the United States at least, which are putting up these antennas like right near your home and in your cities and everywhere, light posts and where you're walking in streets, and that stuff is communicating with, everything can be connected these days. And they use laser beams. They use legitimate laser beams that our eyes can't sense but are there, and which come into contact with our body. And when it comes into contact with our body, it's not good. It changes. It causes an excitement in the cells, and then, causes the calcium in cells to not function properly. And then it causes cascades in the body, which exacerbates like other issues that you're already having. And so then more people are going to the doctor for anxiety and getting prescribed medicine instead of, go out into nature and, sit under the sun for an hour per day, things like that. But I think as people become aware of what's going on, but 5G is slated, to be rolled out, and it is rolling out, so it's coming.
Yeah. I've heard that 5G has the ability to let people message each other while on subways underground. Whereas like right now, at least in Vancouver, although we don't have much underground here, but that I use anyway. Like obviously like you lose signal, right? When you go on the subway or the train underground. So it's crazy to think like that a platform is coming that is so intense that you can text while underground. Like that's wild. I don't know. Like I don't know. That's crazy. Like that just shows how strong it is, I guess.
Yeah. It can be shaped and turned and all this. There's so much technology exists, anything is possible. But what those engineers are people who know about the health effects. And so I suspect that, the young students who are going into these industries are not aware of the health effects either. And so they're going in and making lots of money at entry-level jobs. But the executives of these companies are definitely doing criminal type activity, covering this stuff up. And eventually there are already kind of these soul broken executives who have, come down with health issues themselves and are switching over to the dark side.
Yeah. I think it's also just a reflection of our society of wanting more information faster, wanting to talk to people faster, be on social media faster. And we have such a problem with like instant gratification with millennials and like younger. And because like just growing up in this age, right? So it's no surprise that there's a push for 5G, and there's no surprise that there's a push for things that are even faster than that. It's just like a reflection of where we are as a society. So in terms of somebody listening to this right now and being like, okay, cool, I'm educated now. I want to protect myself. I want to make a difference. What can they do right now at home that could help kind of decrease their EMF load that they're exposed to?
Turn your Wi-Fi router off at night. And if you are lazy or forget, there's actually remote controls that you can hook up to your Wi-Fi router and just turn it off. You don't need it on at night. It's not necessary. Also, your phone should be in the other room. If you're expecting like a call late at night, you're kind of SOL, but the airplane mode is very functional and works well. It's offline mode. Why is it called airplane mode? Because when you're in airplanes, the amount of EMFs you're exposed to is just crazy.
Yeah.
So our underwear is really good for travelers. But let's say like a computer, let's say you sleep in a room where your head is against the wiring where it shouldn't, but on the other side of that wall is like a laptop that's on, or your Wi-Fi router, or anything like a microwave or a refrigerator, or any other appliance it could be emitting. That is going into your head nightly and affecting your sleep. And so yeah, those are simple, easy things. Like power strips underneath the desk are a thing. Just kind of look around and realize like, where are these appliances and how can I be like more feng shui with setting up living environment?
Yeah, I think it's just like stepping back into nature, away from how advanced we've become. So I actually just saw a video today of some fabric that was EMF blocking, and they did a test. So they put an egg inside this fabric and they put it inside a microwave, and then they put the egg inside with the shell on, like uncooked, inside the microwave without fabric. So they did 2 different tests. And the one without fabric, like burst the egg, it baked right away within a minute, cooked, went everywhere. And then the one that was actually in the fabric came out and it was still whole and it wasn't cooked at all. So it's so interesting when you see stuff like that, because it actually shows you how powerful microwaves are. And it shows you that there is EMF technology out there that actually does work like yours, and that you can actually start bringing into your life if you want to decrease your load. So like, obviously what you said has a lot of truth to it, of just like easy things to do. But for people who are actually like into biohacking or serious about reducing their EMF load, like I highly suggest like exploring your brand and other brands that really help decrease the EMF load. I think we're at a point where it's necessary.
Yeah, I don't know how that egg wasn't cooked, but yeah, EMF protection is a necessity. There are so many things that can be done. It's sort of a double-edged sword, because the more aware that you are, then sort of it kind of creates panic in some people. And like, where do you stop, right? Like, at what point do you stop? Because ideally, the way our bodies are made and the way modern society is sort of built these days with 5G, then we should be in the jungle with like in trees and things like that. But I think there's a middle point somewhere, and I think it comes down to kind of more honest business practices and thinking about like what impact you're having, and if you really think what you're doing is good.
No, I think you're
there's kind of these brands that are popping up, and there are a lot of like biologists who you can like do one of these, like a video call, and they'll give you tips and whatnot on what to do. But a lot of it is just available online and really easy to do.
Yeah, do your research. Always good idea. Another thing that I like to do is just like grounding, especially after flights, like you were talking about, like with airplane EMF, grounding yourself, and just, it actually makes such a difference, especially when you fly a lot. And even just grounding yourself at home, getting out into nature and literally like recharging makes a big difference. It really helps with my sleep as well. But with EMFs, like it's kind of like the more natural, the better, I guess, is kind of like the approach that I would suggest overall.
Yeah. You're pretty good with getting out into the sun daily, and right?
Yeah. I mean, I tried to do my best. Like now that I'm back in Vancouver, it's summer, so it's fine, but it's hard when the winter comes because it's just so much rain and gray. So I'm going to have to kind of like figure out that. I know now that there's like lights out there that kind of emit similar like UVs to the sun, but then that's just like something you plug in that has EMFs, right? So it's kind of two-sided. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's like these Stetzer things that you could plug into the wall.
Yeah.
Or genius. And there's like smart meter covers, which are kind of expensive, but you can like do it yourself or find cheaper ones. There are kind of laptop covers, but the underwear quite protected. I haven't seen any studies on like, there's like heart issues. There's like cardiac sort of problems that have been linked to EMF exposure. But if you use your phone up near your chest, that could be an issue. So I think shirts, especially with like 5G, should be something that's looked into. But they're very expensive. And there's like these grounding shoes, right?
Yeah, and also even just like shirts if you were flying, like traveling. So I actually have one as well. And like imagine just like having a full outfit that you would wear every time you flew. Like that would be me. I would totally do that. But sometimes it's kind of needed. I don't know. It depends. Like how far do you go, right? But I'm glad that regardless, like there's just more awareness coming and people are being educated about it. And that's what we really need, because it takes so long for change to happen in the health world. And even just looking at something like nutrition, right? There's still so many healthcare professionals and doctors who are like, nutrition has no impact on your body. And like still, like today, and it's ridiculous. So like the EMF is just like so new. It's in its infancy, right? So I'm excited to kind of like see how it grows and the awareness grows and like the change and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. The health and wellness industry is exploding. It's like well into the trillions. And much larger, I'd say, than the tech industry. And it's attracting smart people. So I think it's a great place to be, health and wellness and sort of, and there's lots of like things with clothing, like these new clothing innovations that are happening and with regards to health, just like antioxidant fabrics and things like that, or sort of they allow sun to get through, right? Kind of like things like that. And
I've seen also like in Australia, when I was there recently, I saw sun blocking fabric, which is really cool, obviously, because the UV there can be really high and dangerous for a lot of people. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If there's anything like you could leave our listeners with, like one single tip that is super helpful just for the average person, what would it be and why?
Question everything and never settle on what you think is the truth, because whatever we think is the truth, in my opinion, is definitely not. There's always something truer. And I think that goes for every industry and every situation.
Yes. Great words. I love that. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much. I will link everything we talked about in the show notes below. And I hope like people go check out your brand, because you're doing wonderful, wonderful things and you educate people so well. So it's really great.
Thank you so much. I had a blast.
Cool. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. I look forward to having you joining me next week for episode 19. I've recorded with a lot of amazing people recently and started having more honest, like authentic conversations about my life and other people's lives, and really honest and like deep conversations. So those are coming up with some of my like female friends from the Instagram and influencer world. Obviously, I like all about health and biohacking as well. So look out for those coming in the next month. If you have anyone you'd like to see on the podcast, shoot me a message or an email. I would love to chat. And as always, everything mentioned in this episode will be in the show notes. This episode and every other episode is available on Google Play and Spotify, iTunes. It's also on YouTube, and it's on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. So thanks, and see you next week.